and his delusions were developing and took off a life of their own. So he was engulfed by the delusion and the thoughts that the only way out is to accomplish his mission. And once he said it to Gargi and to Dr. Fenton, that this is something that preoccupies him, the floodgates were open. He had to do it. There was no way out. He struggled with it for years, and he reached the point, maybe if he wouldn't have been in graduate school, but would have continued in the pill factory, you know, night shift, barely interacting with anybody, this would have never happened. But he did go to graduate school. He was accepted to graduate school, and it was like a storm that in some ways he tried to stop by seeking help with student helps, by helping his friends, who didn't do much about it except telling him that it will be okay.
So you're saying going to graduate school caused the shooting?
Going to graduate school does not cause shooting, fortunately. But for him, who was already on the way, if you look at the developmental curve, if was already on the way to psychosis, the graduate school experience was the last straw. He could not handle it, and he realized how difficult it going to be for him. He experienced it as a failure. It doesn't mean that in reality it was a failure. He was doing okay. He was presenting, he was going to class, he got good grades. But in his distorted perception of reality, he was not perfect. He was not getting all A's. He was having difficulties in learning the laboratory procedures. He was not at the top. There was something wrong with him. It's his perception. It wasn't his teacher's perceptions or any normal people looking at his record, but in his perception, he was a failure. And in his delusions, life was meaningless anyway. We are all going to die. Who knew if we weren't dead before we became alive? And he went this intensification of his delusion, living more in his own world and stepping out from time to time. And then the actions to accomplishing the mission became the central part, the focus of his life, with no other people not knowing it.
So is then the compulsion or the loss of control to do the mission, meaning the mission has to be carried out exactly the way it's planned? Is that part of the psychotic delusion?
Yes. If the mission is not carried out, it's not mission accomplished.
So is that why we have the planning and wait till July 20th before the shooting takes place? Is that why it doesn't happen earlier?
Yes.
Sustained.
Is that or is that not why it happened earlier?
Yes, it is.
Now this hair plucking and this other focusing on schoolwork and video games, now that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And so maybe you can explain that, because is that something he thought of, like, oh, I'm having unwanted thoughts of homicide and I'm a sophomore in high school, I know what I'll do, I'll pull my hair out and that will make the thoughts go away. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Overruled. You can answer.
Can you explain that to us?
Yeah, it doesn't happen the way you said it. It's not a deliberate psychosis. Is not a deliberate process that somebody brings upon himself or herself and calculates at each step of the way, this is how I'm going to react. The thought comes, it's an intrusive, unwanted thought. I mean, trying to imagine that you're sitting at home, trying to work on your homework, you're not in school, and suddenly the thought, kill yourself. No, kill other, kill yourself, kill other. And he developed his way of coping with it that worked for him. He took it away from him, namely, focus on, do your homework now. And he will notice, when describing it later, that when he was busy doing his homework, the thought will go away. When he was playing computer game, it will go away. When he will pluck his hair, it will go away. And with this, when the thought will come, he was doing what he could do, what within his ability to do, secretively. He will not pluck his hair when other people will look at him. He will do it secretively. He will go to the side and do it, because he did not want other people to see and think that he is crazy. He was checking the different diagnostic. Remember, we are dealing with an individual with high level of intellectual functioning and in the internet available. Somebody was studying biology and wanted to be a neuroscience major. He knew about the brain, and he began to read about it more and more and realized something is really wrong with me. And this is something that he had to hide, and that's not different from other people with schizophrenia.